Okay, so today we are simplifying radicals. So we're going to write down the date, the page number, and the learning target, and make sure we get it in our table of contents. We've got some important vocabulary. You need to write down everything in color. Okay, so we're going to start with talking about what some of these mean. The radical is that square root symbol you're often used to seeing. So that's actually just called a radical. The radicand is anything that's sitting under that symbol. So like down at the bottom, 27 is called your radicand. You don't have to write the black words, but radical expression is just any kind of expression with a square root symbol in it or that radical symbol in it. The index, this might be a new term to you. The small number in front of the radical tells you how many repeat factors are needed. So right here where you have a 3, it tells you how many repeat factors are needed, and that'll make sense here in a little bit. The square root is when there's no index written in front at all. So for example, for this one, it says square root of 27. There's no index written here. It's assumed that that's a 2. You don't have to write the 2. They will never write the 2. It's assumed. Just like whenever you have an x, it's assumed that that's a 1x to the first power. Nobody ever writes the 1s. They just write x. So it's the same thing with the square root symbol. It's got a 2 there as the index. You just don't have to see it. You don't ever see it. So in Algebra 1, for our purposes, everything we're going to do is going to be the square root symbol. So everything's going to have an index of 2, which means everything will only need 2 repeat factors. Okay. So what that question just asked you, and you probably just punched it into your calculator, it asked you, what is the square root of 144? Okay. So what you did in your calculator is you should have gotten 12. Or you knew that by hand, or by heart. So basically what you just did is you broke this down. 144 breaks down into 12 times 12, because 12 times 12 is 144. And the way that we think about this square root symbol is I think about it and I call it a singles club, which means you have to be single to stay inside the singles club. Well, 12 is not single, 12 is a couple. So 12 has to leave the singles club as 1 because they're one couple, and there's no one left over, so you don't put anything on the inside. So that's why the answer to the square root of 144 is 12. So let's try that with another one. Square root of 9. Well, 9 breaks down into 3 times 3. 3 is a couple. So 3 has to leave, and there's no one left on the inside, so my answer is just 3. Okay? You can do this in your head, you can do this in your calculator, but not everything comes out to be a perfect square. And we need exact answers a lot of times in math. So what we're doing today is whenever it doesn't come out to be perfect, how do we find out what that exact answer is? So let's look at example 1. We're going to simplify the square root of 75. Well, 75 can be broken down into the square root of, this is 25 times 3, because 25 times 3 is 75. Okay, well, I can break down 25. Two numbers that multiply to give me 25 are 5 times 5. 3 can only break down into 3 and 1. So I don't really care about the 1s. I'm just going to bring 3 down. Okay. Notice this. 5 is a couple, which means it has to leave the singles club. It's not single, so it has to leave as one couple. 3, though, is still single. So my answer has to have a 3 still inside the radical symbol. My answer to square root of 75 is 5 square root of 3. Let's try one more just to make sure you got it. So we're going to make this one example 2. And we're going to do 2 square root of 80. Okay, well this 2 on the outside is outside of the singles club. I don't care what's happening on the outside. I only care what's happening on the inside. And whenever you're taking the square root of something, you want to find the biggest perfect square that goes in there, because that's going to give you a couple. So the biggest perfect square that goes into 80 is actually 16. So I can break down 80 into 16 times 5, and you can check that in your calculator. 16 times 5 is 80. Okay. So again, I don't care what's happening outside of the singles club. I only care about what's happening on the inside. Well, 16 is 4 times 4. You could use 8 and 2, but you don't want to. You're trying to get couples. You're trying to get matches. That's why I wanted the biggest perfect square in the first place. 5 does not break down into anything other than 5 and 1, so it just comes down. I can break down the 4s, but why would you want to? They're a couple. They're going to leave anyway. So I already had this 2 on the outside. That's going to stay there. 4 is a couple, so it's going to leave the singles club with the 2 that was already out there. The 5 is still single, so it has to stay. So my answer to 2 square root of 80 is 8 square root of 5. Now I'm going to show you one time if I had done different numbers. For example, most of you might not have known that 16 times 5 is 80. You can still get the same answer, it's just going to take a little longer. So if I had decided to break down 80 into, let's say, 8 and 10. Okay, well, neither one of those are perfect squares, so this is going to take me a little longer. 8 is 4 times 2. 10 is 5 times 2. 4 breaks down into 2 times 2. 2 does not break down. 5 does not break down. And 2 does not break down. So now, I already had this 2 on the outside. This 2 is a couple, so it leaves. I have another couple of 2's, so they leave. 5 is left over. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, square root of 5. So you still get the same answer, and that's okay, but it's just going to take you a lot longer and some more steps if you don't find the biggest perfect square first. So make sure that you got everything down today and you answer all the questions. You are finished for tonight.